Good evening, America. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And, of course, the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee, it's my favorite coffee. It's a lot of people's favorite coffee. It's going like gangbusters. You can get the brand new 2-pound super inflation-busting bag for under $20 if you use the promo code JustNews at checkout. Go to Wired2Fishcoffee.com and use the promo code JustNews. You'll get that and 10% off anything else in the store. It's a really good deal. All right, for most of the last several years, Americans have been clamoring for accountability here in Washington. Increasingly, they're getting it. Today, the House of Representatives formally censured Democrat Congressman Al Green for repeatedly interrupting President Trump during his address to a joint session of Congress. Now, Democrats tried one more time to play the victim card before it got over, going to the well of the Congress for a short-term protest. Take a look at this.
That Representative Al Green be censured. That Representative Al Green forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. And that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
All right, if you couldn't make out what was going on there, they were singing the great civil rights song, We Shall Overcome, which was very important during the Martin Luther King era. This had nothing to do with civil rights. It had to do with bad behavior, being rude during a formal proceeding. Well, it didn't work. The House voted to censure Green, and 10 Democrats joined Republicans, so it made it a bipartisan rebuke. How about that? Meanwhile, President Trump today signed an executive order just a few minutes ago asking the Justice Department to review the, quote, dishonest and dangerous activity, unquote, of the Democrat-tied firm Perkins Coie. That's a law firm that represented Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign and, of course, played a role in the bogus Russia collusion probe. The action, in the form of an executive order, sent shockwaves through K Street, where all the nation's big law firms reside here in the nation's capital. And finally, Hunter Biden and his ability to attract millions from foreign interests. Well, apparently it's coming to an end now that his famous father has left office. Today, the former first son asked a judge, late last night, the former first son asked a judge in California to dismiss a lawsuit Hunter Biden had brought against the former Trump aide for publishing the contents of his infamous laptop. You remember that lawsuit. The reason Hunter Biden gave, you ready for this? He stated he's simply too broke to proceed. He admitted in the filing that all those consulting fees and those painting sales, remember the ones that he was getting? Well, they dried up as soon as his father left power. I wonder why that happened, Amanda. A little bit of justice in a different form. You've got some other headlines you're watching today, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right, what do you got on the plate?
Yes, President Trump had another busy day, and as part of that, he addressed DOGE and significantly downsizing the federal government, something that the Trump administration has been working every day to do, as it was a campaign trail promise. And as we know, it is much easier said than done to cut government spending. Now, he met with cabinet leaders today, as well as Elon Musk, and directed them to work with DOGE to scale back their departments, but to do it in a more precise fashion. Take a listen to how the president described it today.
I had a meeting and I said, I want the cabinet members go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. And it would be better if they were there for 2 years instead of 2 weeks, because in 2 years they'll know the people better. But I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious. That's very important. And we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
And Elon Musk, for his part, chimed in on X, simply writing, very productive meeting in response to President Trump's post on Truth Social about making sure that they keep the best people in government while also cutting down its size. And on the tariff front, President Trump is giving a little bit of reprieve to Canada and Mexico, signing an executive order that delays that 25% tariff on some Canadian goods, as well as delaying the 25% tariffs on Mexico for another month, of course, not including the USMCA goods. However, the president stated from the Oval Office today that most of the tariffs will take effect April 2nd. All right, John, time to hand it back over to you so we can get to our first guest.
I like that. We're lucky. Earlier today, we spent some time with Congressman Troy Downing. He's one of those who were on the House floor and voted for the censure of Congressman Al Green. He joined us to explain what went on and a whole lot more. Take a watch. All right, joining us now, someone who was in the chamber when that censure motion this morning was passed, from the great state of Montana, Congressman Troy Downing. Congressman, glad to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So today was a pretty big day. Within less than 48 hours, accountability was delivered to a member of Congress who acted badly during that speech that everyone saw in America. How important was it to get it done quickly to send a message, and also 10 Democrats crossing over and joining it?
Well, first of all, we're just trying to get the work of the people done. And I think that was conduct. What we saw during the joint address in Congress, the presidential joint address, is it was conduct unbecoming a member of Congress. It was disrespectful to the office, to the chamber, to the body, to his party, to this country, to the voters that put us there. It was completely the wrong place, and the fact that he continued to go when Speaker Johnson gave him fair warning. I think it was reprehensible, but it comes back to this theme that I've seen in my committee work and the work that we're trying to get done here is, the minority party, a lot of the folks, have really tried to, just slow things down or make it difficult to actually do business. And, the voters put us here for a reason, to do the work. A lot of people are really concerned the direction this country was going. I personally think we're on the precipice. I think we're looking off a cliff with our hands windmilling in the air. And now we've got a president that's getting things done. I think there's been more than 100 presidential actions already. Congress is right in lockstep trying to, codify these actions. And I hear people saying, too much, too fast. And I disagree. I think we are at the precipice and it demands fast action. But getting to your point, I think that was conduct unbecoming. I think that was an appropriate measure. And I don't think we've heard the last of that.
I bet you're right.
Well, and Americans who were polled afterwards agree with you. I think by an 80 to 20 margin, they thought that it was inappropriate. Does it surprise you, though? I mean, today, obviously, the censure vote, and then you had Democrats in Congress singing "We Will Overcome." Did it seem performative, or did it seem genuine? Maybe they really do feel oppressed.
Well, a lot of this, and it's hard for me to get a grasp on what I saw during the joint address. I'm looking over at my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and just the basic abandonment of humanity, not to be able to applaud a kid that's fighting brain cancer, not to have sympathy for a family that lost their daughter, not to be, happy that we have, apprehended terrorists that have, harmed America. All of that stuff I thought was reprehensible. Why? What message are they trying to say here? I think they've completely lost touch with the American people. I think everybody watching that is trying to understand. They expect some partisan disagreements, but they don't expect somebody to completely abandon humanity and not be able to celebrate a surviving 13-year-old kid or a young man getting a place in a military academy. I mean, what an incredible thing! And you can't celebrate that. I don't know what's going on there. And then for the solidarity that we saw at the censure of them taking the well on the House floor and start singing, it's like I think they're so out of touch. I don't know how they get back to bring the American people that have supported them in the past back into their fold. I think they're completely tone deaf, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. The people just want to get work done. They want to get this country fixed, and that's a bipartisan sentiment in the American people now. Sir, you sit on two very important committees. One of them, the Financial Services, the Banking Committee, as we traditionally call them. Over the last several months, it's been over the last year really, a lot of central banks across the world are beginning to buy up gold. There's also we had a gentleman in here yesterday starting up a bank that has a gold backing to its currency. Is there, what are some of the dynamics that has made gold alluring and interesting to central banks around the world, and even in some of our banking markets here in America right now?
Well, uncertainty has always driven people towards, hard assets. And, I think a lot of folks are just wondering what happens, next. But I'll tell you, I'm really excited about what we're doing on financial services. I think that Chairman Hill is, the perfect person for that role. I think he's a smart, driven guy. We're going to start, really solving some problems in banking, in digital assets, in capital markets, all the things that we do there. And I'm really excited. And, even, some of the prospects about reserve currencies in allowing, crypto and some other things to come in there. I think we're going to see a lot of changes with monetary policy for the positive. And I'm really excited about what we do there. But I think a lot of it, with driving to hard assets, folks, sometimes have a sense of uncertainty and they start looking at that. And I think that that's all going to balance out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Congressman, you're on the Small Business Committee, and Main Street definitely showed up for President Trump in November, and he even touched on this a little on Tuesday night, but he campaigned really hard on deregulation and streamlining the permitting process for small businesses, what businesses across the board. Talk to us about some of the work that you're doing in concert with the president to expedite that process.
Well, and I'm really happy to be on this committee. My background is in small business. I was in venture. I've helped a lot of small businesses form. And before I was in Congress, I was a securities regulator in Montana, and capital formation was a huge part of what I did. And so, simply stated, it's finding entrepreneurs, it's finding small business owners, it's finding people with ideas trying to build businesses, and coupling them with access to capital. And I think one of the things that really drives creating and growing the small business community, which is the lifeblood of America and definitely the lifeblood of Montana, is access to capital and finding ways to make it easier to bank them, for them to get loans, to find capital from investors. And there's just been so many regulatory roadblocks that have slowed that down. And I think, that's one of the missions of really looking at that red tape that's, inhibited that access to capital so you can build and grow small business. And I'm really excited about what the president is doing in this space. I'm really excited what we're going to do with Chairman Williams in small business. It's an exciting time to be an American. It's an exciting time to be building a business because, we see the opportunity. We see what it means to Main Street America. This is the creating jobs. This is spending money in communities. This is what, revitalizes the American economy. And I think we've got a whole lot of potential in front of us. And we've got smart people around the table that are willing to do the work to streamline that access and make sure that it's not just ridiculous regulation and access to capital that's keeping you from actually building the American dream.
Yeah, so important. Sir, I know you served our country bravely in Afghanistan when the president announced Tuesday night that they had brought to justice and were flying back to face trial here one of the perpetrators of the Abbey Gate bombing. I would like to get your reaction to that. And then in the last 24 hours, we've learned more about this guy, that he was involved in a couple of other terrorist attacks. Has confessed to that already. What were you thinking when that announcement came through, and how important is it for the families and for America at large?
It's incredibly important. And, I look back, having served in Afghanistan, and, I do I have done a lot of work with, veteran groups and, a lot of post 9/11 veterans. And I just have to first preface it that, what we saw in that, horrible withdrawal in Afghanistan was unforgivable. I think it's a blemish on America. It's going to be difficult for our service members in the future to gain trust that they may need from allies. I think there's so many problems. And obviously, the biggest sore spot in that, or pain point in that, were the lives that were lost. And I'll tell you, anytime you can bring somebody to justice, this gives closure to those families. It gives closure to those victims, and even the ones that weren't directly affected. Just knowing, that we're doing something, that the sacrifices that our servicemen and women have done in defense of this great nation, that none of it's in vain. That the United States of America, and especially this president, this Congress, have your back. And we're going to be watching out for you. And if people do us wrong, we're going to bring them back. We're going to bring them to justice. I think that's an incredible win.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, we're grateful for your service to your country, first in the battlefield, today in Capitol Hill. It's a great honor to have you on the show today, sir. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me anytime. And God bless America. We're starting that new golden age, and I'm just so honored to be part of that.
It feels different. There's no doubt about it. And it's great to have you here in Washington. Thank you, sir, for joining us. All right, folks, coming up next, Texas Congressman Randy Weber joins us. He always brings a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We'll have that right after these messages. Hey, folks, let's be honest. Our body lets us know, right? We're not getting any younger. And if you want to look and feel your best, you need to check our good friends at Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements designed to help with every health goal, whether it's boosting your energy, trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs. Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the good old USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. You heard me right, 35% off. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use the coupon code JUSTNEWS at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's zero risk in trying something new, so why wait? Head over to purehealthresearch.com right now. Explore their 45 amazing supplements and save 35% before this deal ends with the coupon code JUSTNEWS. Don't miss this chance to feel your best.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. So much happening in the nation's capital today, like every day basically since January 20th. And we showed you earlier Democrats singing "We Will Overcome" as the vote to censure Congressman Al Green was taking place. And that isn't the only wave that President Trump's address 2 nights ago is still making. With us to talk about more of those waves and looking ahead to legislative battles next week is Texas Congressman Randy Weber. Congressman, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Well, thank y'all for having me. Y'all always do a great job. We appreciate y'all, Amanda.
Well, we thank you, sir. I want to start with President Trump's speech. We're just trying to get a top-line idea from each of our guests tonight. It seemed hopeful, it seemed forward-thinking, but Democrats didn't seem to think so.
Oh, you're just showing the video. You're not actually playing the audio. I got you.
Oh, no, that's just B-roll. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, look, I was right across the aisle from Al Green, and I watched him, and it was disgraceful that he sought to interrupt the President of the United States over and over and over again. And I have to tell you, Amanda and John, I thought about grabbing his cane and breaking it, not over him, but over the back of the chair. And I was very, very grateful. You probably saw me. I said, do this, throw that sucker out. I don't know if y'all saw the hand gesture I did. Yeah, and it's like, you know what? You don't get the right to interrupt. The American people wanted to see and wanted to hear, and yet Al Green thought he was more important.
Yeah, really remarkable, and he paid for it today. History will remember him as a censured lawmaker, which was important. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the big ideas that President Trump put on the table on Tuesday night, resuming or beginning rare earth mining in America, something we could have done for a long time, but we've yielded to China. Shipbuilding, getting that back on U.S. soil, rebuilding our supply lines of the great shipbuilding and the threat of China and its ship industry. These were big ideas that haven't been thought of in a long time or even moved forward. Does Congress follow right up and make sure that these things become law and get going?
Well, I sure hope so, John. You probably know my district is the upper Gulf Coast of Texas. Starting at the Louisiana line, we've got 7 ports, and more than anybody else. Some have 4. We have 7. Shipbuilding for us, Galveston Shipyard was an old shipyard back in the day, and there's no reason why we should be having to have ships built. Choose the country, Japan, nothing wrong with Japan or South Korea, but we ought to be doing that here. It means American jobs. It means American ingenuity. It means that we are literally in the business of doing all the commerce we can right here in the United States of America. I'm fully behind that.
Yeah, exciting.
Sir, another thing that President Trump, I know, is intent on tackling is the economy, bringing down inflation, and a lot of Democrat criticism out there about him not doing anything specifically to fight inflation. But one of the things that drives inflation down is energy production. And now you've got in Southeast Texas, Secretary Wright approved that export permit extension for LNG. That's going to do a lot to drive the economy in a better direction, isn't it?
Well, it is, but here's a news flash, Amanda. The Democrats hate fossil fuel. That's just as simple as as I can put it. You can't drive ships and tanks and airplanes with solar panels and wind power. I'm sorry, you just can't do that. And that was in our Port Arthur, Texas, Port Arthur LNG. And when you talk about inflation and the economy, because if you're an investor and you've got to choose a number, $3 billion, $5 billion, $7 billion plant that you're trying to get built, and Port Arthur was through phase one, fixing to go into phase two. When Biden, I call him Biden because was Obama's third term. When Biden put the quietus on, investors get real nervous about that. They don't know how long that permit's going to be stymied. You know what I'm saying? And so it was a big deal. We should be exporting as much LNG as we can. We make money doing it. It's jobs. It helps our allies. There's no reason why we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it's just common sense, no doubt about it. So you talk often about the importance of peace through strength and how much Donald Trump has restored American prominence and respect on the world stage. In the last couple of days, we've seen Ukraine, little recalcitrant, suddenly come back to the table, talks potentially in Saudi Arabia next week, and Hamas getting a really poignant message from President Trump. Get those hostages released or something bad's about to happen. How important is it, and how do you think Hamas will react to the very serious words that President Trump and his team uttered today?
Well, it's extremely important. That's the good news. How will Hamas react? Man, I wish I had confidence that they would do the right thing. But you're talking about killers, thugs, murderers, rapists. These are people who take unborn babies and take babies and put them in ovens. I just don't know that they don't hold off to the bitter end. God willing that they'll do the right thing. And I know that President Trump is going to be there, whatever they do. He will hold them accountable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right.
When you talk about the rapists and the murderers and all of the crime, that also applies to our southern border with respect to the cartel. And border crossings are vastly down. However, it's still happening to some degree. President Trump is going to tackle this one way or another via executive fiat or through Congress. What does Congress want to do to help him codify the improvements he's made?
Well, one of the things, look, people don't have the right to come over here and break into our country. They've already broken the law. So the Remain in Mexico policy has to be reinstated. When people want to apply for asylum, they need to go to the embassies in their countries and say, look, I want to apply for asylum. 3 reasons. Number 1, my government is after me. Number 2, I'm persecuted because of my religious belief. Or number 3, because I'm part of a group, a certain group, whatever it might be, LBGP, whatever group it might be. And so I expect that Congress ought to get behind the president. The thing that concerns me, Amanda, is that 60-vote threshold in the Senate, because I think we can get it done in the House over here. We did it, was it the year before last? And so I think we can get it done, but I just don't know if the Senate will play ball with us.
Yeah, that is the big question, has been for some time. So I want to turn a little bit to what lies ahead in the budget. The House passed a budget resolution that actually puts us on a course to cut $2 trillion over 10 years. The Senate has a different plan. You guys are going to come together, joint session. Walk us through what happens to get agreement there, and then what happens when we get to the actual CR that does the funding.
Well, we hope to get there. We may have to get the CR out first, and then we go to reconciliation. I think it's been pushed back from the first week of April to the third week of May, if I've got, maybe it's almost Memorial Day. But look, y'all talked about inflation earlier, and some of the economists that I read growing up, inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. That was this definition, I think of John Smith, maybe I forget the author, of inflation. President is working on inflation. We've got to be working on bringing it down. The president is focused on that. We've got to get, and we're doing it with reconciliation, with the money that you saw the budget come out, with the money that we're intent on cutting and spending. We've got to do that job. And the Democrats are absolutely intent on doing this to us, doing that. They don't want us to be successful because they want to get back in power. But yet the American public voted on November the 5th that they didn't want the Democrats' way. They wanted Trump's way.
That's right.
Yeah, great point.
Sir, before we let you go, I know you're on science, space, and technology, and we still have some Americans in space. I know we talked about President Trump's reputation and our reputation on the world stage. The space frontier is another place where we can get some respect back. How do we get them home?
Well, Elon Musk might play a little part in that. There may be some negotiations going on. But look, this in any military conflict, whichever country occupies the high ground has the upper hand. There is no higher ground than space. I've been saying this for a long time. We had better be preeminent in space at whatever cost, because China is working on it, Russia's working on it. You're seeing some other countries. We've got to be in the leading space, pure and simple, and we got to get our people home.
The Russians beat us in one respect in space, so we got to make sure that never happens again. Texas Congressman
ma'am.
Randy Weber, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight, sir. We'll have you back on very soon.
Thank you for what y'all do. Appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. Likewise. President Trump is taking some heat internationally for his stance on Ukraine, but he seems to be getting what he wants out of Europe, so we're going to talk about that after this.
Welcome back, everybody. For people who haven't watched Donald Trump for the last decade, sometimes when you see him work like on tariffs, where they're in, they're out, it sometimes feels like the hokey pokey. Your right leg's in, his right leg's out. But there's actually an extraordinary strategy behind it. Nobody understands that better than our next guest, who's been alongside the president for most of the last decade on the Trump campaign, and was the chairman of the Frontline Government Relations. Now, his new firm today, our good friend, Michael Glasser. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, John. Amanda, it's always great to be with you.
It's been amazing because so much of what Donald Trump has done in the last 6 weeks has literally forced Europe to come our way, Ukraine to come our way, Canada and Mexico to come our way. So the media likes to say, well, I don't understand this. He's zigging and zagging, but actually there's a strategy to all of this, isn't there?
Absolutely. You know, it's really so elemental. Like, everybody should be required to read The Art of the Deal. It's all in there. You know, Donald Trump has followed his, philosophy his entire career. It's worked for him, obviously, extremely well in business. It works in government. He knows how to make a deal. And, the Democrats and the left-wing media just keep falling into the same trap over and over. They, Donald Trump makes an assertion, or he starts a negotiation, and they immediately, the hair's on fire, and it's the end of the world. And what is this crazy guy doing? And then the deal comes through, and they're surprised. So it just keeps happening over and over. We're seeing that again on multiple fronts. Right now.
The president should just bring a copy of The Art of the Deal down to the White House Correspondents
That's right. Just
Association.
hand it out to everybody.
Because his reporters would save a lot of anguish if they just read the darn thing. They'd be so much smarter. Yeah.
Michael, John mentioned the hokey pokey, but it's also red light, green light when it comes to the tariffs. And I want to ask you specifically about Canada, because President Trump's got to walk a very thin line and a very delicate balance between protecting the United States interests, but also Justin Trudeau, for sure, is improving his numbers in Canada. A few months ago, Pierre Poilievre was far ahead of him, not even hardly seen ahead of him when it came to the polling. But now Justin Trudeau is campaigning on this and standing strong for Canada. It's a very, very small needle to thread. How does President Trump do it?
Well, we just referred to this. He will make a deal in the end that's going to be to the benefit of America and to American workers. But it's not, it can get complicated. Obviously Canada has been a very strong trading partner for the United States for a very long time. And President Trump recognizes that. But they also have to stop the flow of fentanyl across the border. Like, he's made that very clear throughout all three of his campaigns. That's a priority for the United States. So I think you're going to see him continuing to be aggressive towards Canada to stop the flow of the killer drugs, regardless of the short-term impact on our economy. He said it, and I believe it. I think Americans are willing to withstand a little short-term pain for the long-term gain of stopping the death that's been foisted upon us by the Chinese manufacturers and the complicit countries to our north and south. So it is complicated, but ultimately he's going to win because he has to stop that scourge.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 2026 is a big election year, and it's never too early to start thinking about it because all the campaigns are already thinking about it. It seemed to me that the Democratic Party on Tuesday night gave the American people the perfect attack ad for Republicans to run against them the rest of the time, because they can't even applaud for a young man who survives cancer, has those scars on his head. He just wants to become a cop and a public servant to give back for the good fate that he survived cancer. And the Democrats can't even applaud for that. How visually resonating was that for Americans, and will it stick around for a while?
I think it will, because President Trump went there obviously with the highest approval rating he's ever had, and the Democrats are just living in a false reality. They just cannot recognize that he won by a lot in the popular vote and the Electoral College, and he has the strong backing of the majority of the American people. The Republican Party 100% is backing him. So President Trump got up there. He talked about the successes he's had in this very short period. It's really quite remarkable. And the Democrats just keep falling into the same trap. They can't help themselves. It's all performative. They're trying to mollify their far left-wing base. And it's just been proven, particularly this last election, that the majority of the country is not buying into that agenda. The hypocrisy is just astounding. These far left Democrats, they vote against banning men from women's sports, and then they show up wearing pink, supposedly promoting feminism. It's just madness.
Well, and Michael, help me understand, because whether you're talking about Republicans or Democrats, they listen to their strategists, and the strategists are looking at the polling and the focus rooms. The polling doesn't support trans Inc. within the Democrat Party's platform. Who's telling them to dig in on this?
I don't know, but I just don't understand. They're stuck in this path. They can't find a way out of it. And the beauty is that President Trump and his administration just keeps boxing them in. They can't change. And if they do, they fear they're losing their base. I'll say this, Gavin Newsom, I loathe his policies, but as a political operative and a strategist, he's obviously brilliant. You saw today he completely changed his position on that topic. Yep. Is it because he's smart enough to understand that it's a stone cold loser? And he, all these policies that are 80% support across the board of all kinds of Americans, and then these Democrats are still supporting the contrary to that. It's just unfathomable. But to Newsom's credit, he gets it.
Yeah, he does, no doubt about it. President Trump's speech not only was so successful for the stage management and the honoring of everyday Americans and putting Democrats on the defensive, he laid out some big ideas. I mean, really big ideas, like rebuilding the ship industry, which we used to be great at, and we've yielded to China. Starting the rare earth mineral under our own soil. We've always been told, China has it all. We got it under our own soil. He wants to get that going. Getting a balanced budget before he's out of office. These are big, big ideas. Is the infrastructure in Congress and the Republican Party there to get the president what he needs to do this?
I really think it is. You saw the initial test vote on the budget resolution was the party was very unified. I mean, I'll say this, that's one advantage the Democrats have had over the Republicans in recent Congresses, that they march in lockstep. Yeah. They stick together. They form a very solid block. I think you're seeing that formulate under Speaker Mike Johnson. He was denigrated by many as not being strong enough or not being a smart enough strategist. But I think that's being disingenuous. The proof is in the pudding. That vote was very strong. I think you'll see a continuation of that, just because it's amazing how the media, the left-wing media, has become inured to the status quo. And like the negative impact that their globalist policies have had on the economy and on our country for so long, that they pretend that it's fine. And the fact is, it's not fine. And when President Trump points out what are just very common sense solutions, it seems like radicalism to them. But the fact is what the American people want. It's what they voted for, and it's what he's going to deliver.
Yeah. Michael, another big idea, which shouldn't be a big idea, but President Trump said he wants to balance the budget, presumably within this term. The Republicans on Capitol Hill as a body, is that compatible with President Trump and his desire to do so?
It's funny. Those of us who've been around long enough know that has been a basis of the Republican platform for decades. Yeah. That was Ronald Reagan's mantra, and it should be ours. Again, it's the out of control spending has become normalized. And nobody really seems to care about balancing the budget. But the fact is, for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, it must be done. And, I think the president ran on that platform. Again, it's another one of those things. He said this is what he was going to do, and he is actually doing it. And it's just astounding to many people because it's been so long since we've had a president that's actually done that. So this is just another thing. I think it's eminently doable. It's just if we have the will in the Republican Party to back up a strong president.
2:48 a.m. on the morning after the election in 2024, President Trump uttered these words: promises made, promises kept, and he has really lived to that in his first 5 weeks. It was a remarkable line, and it's really playing out before our eyes. Michael, you are always a pleasure to have on the show. We always learn so much from you. You understand the president better than anyone I know. Thanks so much for having you on today.
Thank you, John, Amanda.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Great to have you, sir. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, folks. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the bird flu. We're hearing a lot about it. Should we be concerned? And also about measles. We'll have that with Dr. Peter McCullough right after these messages. Welcome back, America. We've been keeping a close watch on the headlines when it comes to measles and bird flu. And a couple days ago, I saw Dr. McCullough talking, and I noticed a little bit of change in his analysis of what's going on. I wanted to bring him back on. There's nobody we trust more about the science of medicine than he. Of course, he's the chief scientific officer at one of our partners here, the Wellness Company. He joins us right now. Dr. McCullough, good to have you back on, sir.
Thank you.
So I think over the last few weeks, there have been some signs that maybe bird flu is going to have some jumping to human. Am I misreading that? What are you seeing? What's your current analysis?
I think bird flu has taken a turn for the worse. The outbreak has gone on far too long. This culling and introducing fresh flocks to get reinfected over and over again has allowed time and opportunity for genetic misadventure, actually mutation and genetic reassortment. Now we've had the emergence of the D1.1 variant.
Right.
We've had one man die in Louisiana, a severe case. Fortunately, a teenager survives in British Columbia, and now a toddler dies in Indonesia. I'm greatly concerned. It's taken a turn for the worse. We have 40 mammal species now that can get infected, and now there's evidence of mammal-to-mammal spread. I think human-to-human spread is just around the corner.
Oh, gracious. All right, so culling was part of the problem that got us here, but is culling the solution? What's the solution?
No, culling is not the solution. You know, the average facility is taken offline for 3 months. They have a fresh flock that is, installed and grows up and gets reinfected by the mallard ducks over and over again. The culling needs to change to just take out the sick birds, which are relatively few, let the remaining birds develop this Venn diagram of natural herd immunity. That's the only thing that's going to bring this to the end. We saw Secretary Rollins come out and be appropriately reserved about vaccines in the animals and in humans, because if we mass vaccinate, the virus will just get stronger.
Yeah. I want to make sure people understand this, because I think what you're describing is that this culling process has actually made the transmissibility and the jumping to species more severe, rather than letting a natural virus take its course and create immunity quicker. Is that the right way to look at this?
That's right. Decades ago, bird flu has been around for 100 or more years. It would sweep through, would be over with in about 2 years, and the birds would get natural immunity. This biosecurity strategy of killing, 200 million chickens when we've only had 10,000 actually get sick with bird flu has been counterproductive and extended the crisis.
All right, we talked about what the solution is on the industry side of things. For everyday consumers, do we need to be concerned about buying eggs, buying chicken breasts? What do we need to be concerned or wary about?
No, cooking to over 165 degrees should kill any bird flu. We don't recommend drinking, raw unpasteurized milk. Eggs should be fine. Wellness companies stepped in with the Prevent and Protect program to just get our critical medical kits out to the farmers to make sure they're protected. Twice daily nasal sprays, throat sprays, and gargles, and then, of course, immediate use of oseltamivir, which works when started on day one. Our farmers will be protected thanks to the Wellness Company, but we have to get the USDA biosecurity strategy on track.
Well, and thank you to you and your company for taking that generous step and just getting in front of it. We got a new leadership coming into NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. I think you and he agree on a lot of things. How important is it to get them in place quickly before we end up in another pandemic situation?
We need leadership that's transparent. I thought Bhattacharya and Makary today both did very well. Their opening lines were, a recommitment to the scientific process, what RFK is calling radical transparency, and that's what America wants to see.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Dr. McCullough, I want to shift gears to measles. We now have another death today. Measles is something, it's covered by the MMR vaccine, which as far as vaccine goes, pretty darn safe and reliable, and it's been around for a long time. Is measles something that we need to be worrying about, or is it only for people who are not vaccinated?
These cases need complete exposition, investigation. Remember, measles death, even before the vaccines, was way less than 1 in 1,000. How do we have 2 deaths in just a few hundred cases of measles? We have several hundred cases a year. What's changed? We need to hear about treatment where individuals are appropriately treated with vitamin A, which is protocol. Did they get the measles immunoglobulin, which is an antibody that blocks the measles virus? Did they get full supportive care, secondary antibiotics? We're not hearing any details. This is very important. 95% of the cases, our public health authorities say, are unvaccinated or vaccine status unknown. Well, how many of those are people who actually took the measles vaccine? They can't find their records to prove it.
Yeah, that's a really important thing to find out. If it were to evade the vaccine, what would that suggest about the virus? That it's more mutated?
I'm greatly concerned that this is not the measles of yesteryear, where it was so mild. 2 deaths makes me very suspicious that something has changed, and we need bona fide public health investigation. A measles death with no explanation is not acceptable.
Yeah, it's really important.
Is vitamin A something that is readily available to your everyday consumer? Is it something people should have in their house?
Vitamin A is available in liquid form. Now, it's advised to be given just under the direction of a doctor. Under age 1, 100,000 units a day for 2 days. Over age 1, 200,000 units a day for 2 days. Again, available. You can buy it on, online. A cup of carrot juice is about 40,000 units. So if you just wanted a home remedy, 2 cups of carrot juice, vitamin A is very preventive and effective against severe measles.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even know that. One last quick question. Are we in danger of another pandemic, or are there steps that can be taken to make sure we don't hit pandemic status on the bird flu at some point?
I think we're on the verge of human-to-human transmission and severe cases, and it's going to come out of the poultry and cattle industry. We have to protect that industry. The personal protective equipment and culling is not going to be enough. I strongly advise that we get an early treatment program in place. Wellness Company has stepped in with our kits. We hope our government will follow with what we call big egg, the big manufacturers that have the most workers at risk.
Yeah, brilliant strategy as always, sir. Again, folks, for all the things that Dr. McCullough has done over the last 4 years, he's built this incredible company, twc.health/justnews. You're going to go there, you can get all those wellness kits, including the new bird flu kit. Promo code is JUSTNEWS. twc.health/justnews. Go use the promo code JUSTNEWS. Get ahead of this and be smart. Dr. McCullough, as always, thank you so much for joining us. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, an expose on the Cleveland Clinic reveals some, troubling findings, according to our next guest. We'll have that after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. It is our last segment of the night, but it certainly is not the least important. Consumers Research has launched a campaign exposing the Cleveland Clinic, yes, the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic. They say that it is prioritizing race-based care, DEI, gender ideology, climate activism, of course, over the health of their patients, and that definitely doesn't sound good for the health of America. With us now to break that down, what's going on inside the Cleveland Clinic, the Executive Director of Consumer Research, Will Hild. Will, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you.
All right. What caused you to catch wind of what they were doing over at Cleveland Clinic? Because this is a clinic that is, like I said, world-renowned, does world-class research and treatment. What got you on the scent?
And in addition, it's also a recipient of hundreds of millions of dollars in government funding. The reason we looked at it is because we really saw that there was the trifecta of wokeness going on at the hospital. You had programs that apparently discriminate based on race and prioritizing care. They had 2 programs, one aimed at strokes, for example, that was aimed at specifically at treating minority patients instead of just treating all Americans equally. You have them engaging in sex change operations for children, probably the most egregious and disgusting thing that they were doing. But then also, and I don't want to underplay this, they're engaging in all kinds of net zero nonsense that was raising costs for consumers. They had, spent millions and millions of dollars on green projects. And even their CEO had said that healthcare was only a part of their mission. Well, I don't think the guy that started Cleveland Clinic would have thought that. They're a nonprofit. Their focus should be the healthcare of patients. They should be providing good care to everybody, not focusing on cozying up to woke politicians and woke activists. And so we launched this campaign, clevelandclinicexposed.com, along with an advertising campaign to expose what they're doing and send a simple message, which is get back to treating patients, not serving woke activists.
Yeah. Well, obviously, your ad campaign had a profound effect because Cleveland Clinic felt incredibly compelled to respond. And they say things like, this isn't true, it's misleading, it's inaccurate. And they use present term for two things. And I want to ask you about this. Present term, they say that Cleveland Clinic does not provide gender-affirming surgeries for patients under age 18, and we do not discriminate or create preferences based on race. But they use the present term. Was that intentional?
You got it. That is very intentional, because our data, we worked these campaigns off of data from an organization called Do No Harm.
Right.
And Do No Harm's methodology, where they figure out which hospitals have been doing child sex change operations, is based on the insurance reimbursement requests that were put in by the Cleveland Clinic for these operations. So when they say that we don't do child sex changes, that's very savvy of you to pick up on the fact that that could be taken to mean they never did them. But what they're taking advantage of the present tense there, because it's now illegal to do these operations in Ohio. But they continued to have all kinds of stuff on their website around gender ideology and counseling children with gender. Now, what's funny is on the same day that they sent us a cease and desist, claimed we were lying and threatened to sue us over our campaigns, they started deleting all kinds of web pages from their main site around this stuff. So everything from the programs that racially discriminated to the child sex change and gender ideology counseling to even the green commitments that they had made in their connection with Human Rights Council and even third parties. They asked Human Rights Council, which is a far left LGBTQ activist, to take down pages on their website about their partnership with Cleveland Clinic. So they're running scared. They know we have the goods on them. And despite whatever legal threats and nonsense and denials they may be throwing out there, we know the truth, and we're going to be educating consumers about what that is.
I want to ask you specifically about the race-based triage, I suppose, pun intended. I vividly remember during COVID a number of cases. One was in Texas where they were prioritizing Black Texans for the COVID vaccine over white Texans, and there was a huge amount of backlash. Has this been going on since before that, or is it right about the same timeline?
That, it probably started before that when you had the rise of DEI and CRT. But it really went into overdrive. Concurrent with COVID, of course, we had the George Floyd-related riots and the BLM, corporate America just kowtowing to BLM left and right. And you're 100% correct. Before the shots became somewhat controversial, there were a number of different health systems that claimed they were going to start giving them out based on race, not just to triage of people who needed them the most. And there was another famous case in Boston, a health center there, basically wrote a open letter, op-ed, saying that they were going to be doing this and that they knew that they were going to get sued for it because it's a violation of a number of civil rights laws, but they were going to do it anyway. So this is part of the reason we felt the need to push back on companies like, or hospitals like Cleveland Clinic, is because the health, unfortunately, we see this in history. I love doctors. I'm married to one, but unfortunately, sometimes the medical industry does horrific things when they're not being constrained by morality and the law. And so this is part of what this campaign is about: is they listen. You don't need to be mutilating the genitalia of children. You don't need to be discriminating against your patients based on race and sex, and you don't need to be raising costs by engaging in all kinds of green nonsense. It's not part of your mandate. You need to be focusing on providing high quality treatment that, as you noted, they're famous for. So this is really about getting them back on mission.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds left. Real quickly, is your goal to shut them down or just to get to change your focus? And two, have any lawmakers or state bodies in Ohio or elsewhere jumped in since you started this?
No, I hope it's not necessary to shut down the Cleveland Clinic. What we'd like to see is get them back to focus on their core mission, their only mission, which is to provide high quality patient care. But I will say this: I think that the president put out an executive order asking every government agency to come up with 9 organizations they think should be investigated for DEI, for discrimination around race and sex. And I think that the Cleveland Clinic really should, the amount of money that they get from the federal and the state governments, I think they should be looked into for this, because people need to know that their tax dollars aren't going to an organization that's going to specifically choose one race and sex over care of another.
Well, with all of the good work you are doing at Consumers Research and revealing this, I have a feeling that that's going to be on a number of lists when it comes to the 9 programs, or at least take a look at. Will Hild, Executive Director of Consumers Research, thanks again for joining us tonight. And that's going to do it for us this evening, but Grant Stinchfield is going to take you through the next hour, and then we'll see you again tomorrow night.